Drake, Future, and The Weeknd. 3 massive artists I'm sure you guys all have heard of by now, and they all just came out with new music in the past couple weeks. On this episode of Music Monday, we want to talk about these new singles, Search and Rescue and Double Fantasy, as well as...
So just these artists in general, yeah, they're really big and successful. I'm sure you've heard of them all. And we wanted to highlight them because we feel like they all started out as kind of more R&B, and in the last decade have really, really transitioned in their music style, evolved.
Totally.
And these singles honestly are a tribute to that kind of evolution. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video, is kind of where these artists started out and then kind of where they are now, and some of the music, songs, and albums that really highlight that. So we're super excited.
So excited. Let's go ahead and jump into it, starting with Drake. Drake, as I'm sure all of you remember, but if you weren't there, started as a total R&B guy.
100%.
Such an R&B artist.
He was such a, very R&B, very smooth.
Yeah.
He still is,
style.
but he was really, that's how he started out.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the beginning with Drake. 2009, the album So Far Gone. When this, obviously I didn't hear it right when it came out. I was a little young, but when I heard this music, it was super R&B, a little less R&B than the Drake I knew at the time even.
Yeah,
so
me too.
That just speaks back to the overall point of the evolution of these artists. And it was super interesting to us how they all started in R&B. But So Far Gone 2009, the first and our shared favorite song off this album is November 18th.
If you guys haven't heard this song, it's
Please go
one of the
listen to
most
it.
vibey, chill.
Oh my goodness.
Such a cool beat. It's one of my
so
favorite
good.
Drake songs ever.
It's that, so vibey. It puts you in this whole mood of super chill, and we totally recommend that one. And then also off that album was Best I Ever Had, another one of our classic favorites, super reminiscent of Drake of that era.
And the other album that really showcased Drake's R&B kind of style that I want to mention is Take Care, 2011. It has some really, really just rich R&B songs.
Super fun songs.
But definitely the most prominent R&B, and Drake's most R&B song ever probably is Marvin's Room. Off of that one.
You guys know that one. That one is that's the sad boy song of the century in my opinion.
Absolutely. And then it was really cool because in 2013, Drake dropped an album that we felt like kind of was his his hip hop switch. He had a little bit. He had definitely been hip hop before, but this is when he started to go a little bit harder for most of the album.
More mainstream trap, honestly.
And that was Nothing Was the Same.
2013. That one is so beloved between us. But in our opinion, that was really where he had been dabbling in hip hop on those couple albums between 2009 and 2013. But Nothing Was the Same, which is kind of in the title right there. I think we saw a full commitment switch with Drake.
Absolutely. And obviously since that album, since 2013, you're probably more familiar with his discography.
100%.
And he has gone full hip hop, and he's come out with some great stuff, which is awesome. But we kind of just wanted to leave it at more like his beginning roots, and then kind of when the switch was the main switch. And now we're probably going to jump into the next feature artist.
We are
Future. So Future, I'm sure you've heard this
Free
name.
Bands. I've heard that name.
Absolutely.
I love Future.
But he started out definitely not exclusively as an R&B artist, not by any means.
Definitely trappy from the start.
But his first big radio hit that we're going to touch on was definitely R&B, and that was Turn on the Lights in 2012. Really, really good song.
That's
and
such
definitely
a good one.
R&B.
That one is so unique, and it was his first big radio hit for a reason, in my opinion, just because it brought R&B, like pure R&B to the table, but in such a fun, unique way. Turn on the Lights. Yeah, definitely go listen to it if you haven't.
And that single was shortly followed by another big R&B radio hit, Never End remix with Kelly Rowland. Really R&B.
And at the time, 2012, 2013, that was the sound you heard from Future. It was a very mainstream sound, but in the most unique way possible.
Absolutely, which is what we really liked about the beginning of his career.
And then, so to move on to a little bit later down the line for him, his hip hop full transition. And this is the theme we're going with, kind of.
Yeah.
2015, What a Time to Be Alive. And truly, it was a time to be alive.
It really was. And that whole album actually featured our first boy that we talked about, Drake. Which is really cool.
It was a collab album between Future and Drake. And if you were there for it, you know what I'm talking about. That was some of the most, to this day, unique and really good trap, just pure hip-hop music I've ever heard.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Fun. And yeah, that was kind of, in my opinion, like we said, not when he did hip hop for the first time or trap for the first time, but that's when he solidified himself in that scene. Just like with Drake, honestly.
100%. And just like with Drake, the stuff that Future has come out with from that point to now is definitely hip hop, and he is just a really, really successful, well-known music artist, and we really appreciate his work.
Quite a bit. Shout out Future.
Shout out Future. And with that, we are going to go and jump into our last artist.
The Weeknd.
The Weeknd. I'm so excited.
I'm really excited. We did save, not best for last, but kind of best for last in this case.
In this particular scenario, I'm super excited. We're just going to jump into
it. Yeah, take it away.
House of Balloons, 2011.
Oh my goodness.
Now, guys.
I just got the chills.
If you haven't heard House of Balloons by The Weeknd, it is just truly an amazing album. All R&B pretty much. And it's not like full R&B. He definitely mixes other genres in, which is so cool that he just did that from the start. One
of the most unique sounding projects I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
To this day.
Like, some of our favorite songs ever are off of that. High for This.
And speaking of favorite songs by The Weeknd, The Morning.
The Morning.
Talk about that one for a second.
So the first time that I heard this song, I was absolutely blown away.
Me too.
I was a little bit shocked. Wasn't exactly sure what I was hearing, but I was not just like hearing a song. The first time, it was like a whole experience.
Feeling the song.
Whole experience that I had. I felt that song in like every part of my body. It's just, and I still get that sometimes when I listen to it. It's like one of my all-time favorite songs, and it is from House of Balloons originally. It is just so incredible. Definitely an R&B pop kind of merge.
A little more indie too.
A little more indie as well.
Yeah, just all
which is some of my favorite genres. So
100%.
It all blends together, and The Weeknd does such a good job just putting like his whole soul into that song.
You just feel the emotion.
You really feel it. And that was one of his first main, I think it was actually like a mixtape type thing.
It was a mixtape. House of Balloons was a mixtape at the time.
Yeah, at the time. He later released another album that had was an actual album with a few from there.
A few years later,
but that whole album is really R&B, so we wanted to touch on it.
It was his first big project. And sorry, I'm gonna rant for a second on this,
please.
just because I knew about The Weeknd for years before I found out about House of Balloons and these songs, The Morning.
Yeah,
which was interesting.
It actually took me a minute to find this too. I definitely knew Weeknd songs, like some of his more mainstream hip-hop-y stuff way before I found House of Balloons. Me too.
Yeah, and so we just really wanted to bring it up because it's so special to us. And if you are a fan of The Weeknd and you haven't heard it, please,
I'm sure you'll be a fan.
Encourage. In fact, I'm telling you to go listen to that song.
Please
actually,
do. But yeah, kind of jumping off that, we're gonna get into his album that he released in 2015, Beauty Behind the Madness.
That album was massive.
So big.
So big.
Like,
you only heard him on the radio during that time.
For a few months, it was only Weeknd that you'd hear, for real.
No, yeah. And just to go with the R&B theme real quick. Yeah, House of Balloons, well, Emma was saying, just to recap, it was reminiscent of multiple different genres, which he did so beautifully, but R&B was the predominant genre.
Yeah,
he was an
sure.
R&B guy. Everyone knows him as an R&B guy. But let's talk about Beauty Behind the Madness.
Let's do it, because this is where we saw some really, really hard stuff from the Weeknd, and we all loved it. We ate it up. And
we couldn't
I'm sure
get enough of that.
You guys all know these songs that we're going to say, but we're just going to name a few of our favorites, starting with Earned It.
Oh my goodness, Earned It. So we did a little listen through the other day for this album, and the nostalgia from when we played Earned It specifically was huge for me. I love that song.
Yeah, it's one of the most played songs like ever on Spotify, which is insane. But
a lot of these are
for
actually
a reason, because it's so good.
Yeah, and then, dude, this one might be my favorite off the album, The Hills.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite too.
The Hills.
If you guys haven't heard The Hills, it's just it's crazy.
I didn't know it was possible to do a bass line like that.
No, I didn't know you were allowed to do a bass line like that until the Weeknd did it. I was like, okay, here we go. And then Often, of course.
Often. We could not mention that one. That was our other pick for the album.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it was super popular and mainstream, but that was for a reason. It was the perfect blend of R&B, mainstream pop, but still super hip-hop and unique at the same time.
It was all unique, but everyone loved it. It was so cool. And then the last album we'll talk about,
dude,
we all know and love it, Starboy.
That one is our second favorite Weeknd album of all time.
100%.
We could say favorite mainstream album.
Mm-hmm.
That one was crazy. Let's talk about what we liked off that.
Let's talk about it, because it was still for sure the Weeknd.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the stuff that he did was, again, super, super hard. And this one seemed to be even more a little bit hip hop trappy. Mix a few more of those things in than Beauty Behind the Madness, which is why we really love like all the songs from this, but we'll just mention a few.
Yeah, because it was like, again, he leveled it up to evolve into, now it was R&B, hip hop, sure, but now he's bringing this new kind of synthwave pop electronic element to the beats, which we just couldn't get enough of either at the time.
We really love that in music, so this album was so cool. Obviously the song Starboy.
Obviously. Not much I have to say about that one, but I think that's just a great way to start out the album.
No, it really is. And then actually, I think this is the second song on the album that we both love a ton, Party Monster.
Party Monster. That's where I was talking about those synthwave electronic sounds. Those come in a dark way, like a Stranger Things kind of way. It was so fun. Super
fun. Sidewalks with Kendrick Lamar.
And yeah, that Kendrick Lamar feature, like we said, this was a hip hop album too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of features like that. And we loved the guitar riff in that song so much, dude.
It's so fun. If you guys haven't heard Sidewalks, it's like really, really good. I didn't discover that one till a little bit later.
Yeah, it was super fun, and it wasn't one of the more popular ones when the album came out.
It wasn't, but highly recommend. And then the last song that we'll say with the lovely Lana Del Rey.
Lovely.
Stargirl Interlude. One of my personal favorite songs ever, kind of all time. Like, it's just so good. And
you hear that. You on that song specifically, in my opinion, you get a glimpse of House of Balloons.
Yeah, it's like a little peek window into kind of that
the past of the Weeknd style,
the
where
vibe of that, the House of Balloons.
Totally, and I would say that's a perfect transition point to sort of bring home this episode to our main thesis and point here.
Yes.
Yeah. Just like we just said, you could get a peek into the window of the Weeknd's style, how he started his roots. Now, let's bring it full circle to the brand new singles that The Weeknd and Future and Drake came out with.
Absolutely. So we'll just start with Search and Rescue by Drake. We'll just go back to Drake for a second.
Absolutely.
Because the first time I heard Search and Rescue, my first thought was, oh, here's Drake again.
Yeah.
Like not,
definitely
like,
Drake.
This is so Drake, and I love that he released this single, and like the album art, everything was so Drake.
It was.
And not that the stuff he's released in the past couple years hasn't been good. Like, I've enjoyed a lot of it, but at the same time, I feel like Search and Rescue really, it was R&B enough, it was trappy enough to be like perfectly Drake and like the essence of that. So really that's like a tribute song to this last decade for him.
100%. In our opinion, it was him kind of putting out a single that was, like Emma said, all of the Drake, essentially, from past, present, and everything in between, really. Let's switch to Double Fantasy.
Yes.
The Weeknd and Future on this one. Very, very, very similar thesis statement. You just got to hear sort of a tribute to The Weeknd's style and involvement as an artist over the last 10 years, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And Future's part in there, I would say pretty much the same thing. And it was so cool to listen to this single for the first time for me as well, because I thought the exact same thing about these two artists. Like, it's just purely them, and it is for a TV show that HBO is coming out with, which is cool, but the single in itself is just a really good representation of these artists and their style. And that's kind of what we wanted to wrap up the video with.
100%.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We really enjoyed making this week's episode, and we're going to try and keep these a weekly thing, so definitely stay tuned. We're also going to be coming out with a lot more music content in the next little bit, so go and subscribe if you're interested in seeing us make some beats and do some cool stuff.
Absolutely. Until then, stay safe, guys. See you in the next one.